Just one day after the mass shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, the Tarrant County police officers had accidentally showed images of guns to school children. The Star-Telegram reports that photos of an AR-15 were shown by a Tarrant County Sheriff's Office deputy during a career day event at the E.M. Daggett Elementary School. Classy, very classy. According to a Fort Worth school employee, the presentation included photos of AR-15 rifles. In a photo of the presentation shared with the Star-Telegram, an image of the poster titled "A Liberal's Guide to the Deadly AR-15" is highlighted on Google Images. So now let me show you that. So that was the presentation, okay? Because of course. Now let me give you a close-up of what that actually was, so you can see it a little bit more clearly. So I think that it's important, more context. So that's the close-up, okay? Now obviously it describes the different components of the AR-15. But when you read the captions, you realize that it's just satire. Look at the laser scope, right? Provides accuracy up to 10 miles. It can see through walls. No, that's not a real thing. No, it doesn't cloak the shooter. No, it doesn't have 1,000 rounds per minute magazine. So look, again, satire, right? But none of that matters. Because what that is basically, and this is how I took it, making fun of the victims of people that are killed by this weapon. And say, oh, it's not really that dangerous. Well, you libs only think the AR-15 is super deadly and dangerous. And it's also making fun of people who are outraged by the deaths being caused by this gun. But look, it doesn't have to shoot 1,000 rounds per minute for this to be an incredibly deadly weapon. And that's the point. To illustrate this, let's go back to 2016, where Peter Ree, a trauma surgeon at the University of Arizona, compared the damage that a 9mm handgun round could do versus an AR-15 round to the human body. He said this, quote, "One looks like a grenade went off in there, while the other looks like a bad knife cut." Now, not good in both circumstances, of course. But one seems to be more dangerous than the other. The bullet from an AR-15, while relatively small, does leave the muzzle at 3 times the speed of a handgun bullet. It has so much energy that it can actually disintegrate about 3 inches of leg bone. Whereas, of course, a 9mm round can be stopped by a bone. In fact, Donald Jenkins says of this, he's another trauma surgeon at the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio, quote, "It would just turn it to dust," speaking of the bone, of course. "If it hits the liver looks like a jello mold that has been dropped on the floor. The exit wound could be the size of a hole, a size of an orange. The origins of the investigation, as they would say for Trump." And it says nothing about hollow points. Yeah. The 5.56 rounds was built to be anti-personnel. It's a round built to kill humans. It's not a hunting round. That's why, again, it turns everything into just basically destroyed meat. Those are the rounds being used in the AR-15, the 5.56. High-velocity bullets also can cause something called cavitation. So it's not just the bullet going in you that's the problem. What cavitation is it basically leaves ripples, kind of like if you trail your fingers across some water. When that high-velocity bullet pierces the body, that ripples the human tissues as well and can cause blood vessels to burst. If the right blood vessel bursts, you could bleed out very easily. And that's just, by the way, one bullet. Just one. The AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, it can shoot pretty fast. As fast as you can pull the trigger, which can be very fast. Especially since it has a very, very low kickback. It's a very smooth rifle to shoot. And that's one reason it's very popular. It's very, I think it's the country's most popular rifle. Very popular with mass shooters as well. Very easy to use, and it can be modified. Now, look, if you want to defend yourself, as you have a right to do in this country, odds are you'd pick up a 9mm pistol. It can do the job of defending you. And it's concealable, compact, all that. If you're looking to cause some serious damage to humans, well, then you choose an AR-15. Simple as that. And look, this is hard to say, but I'm going to say it, right? It has to be pointed out. Just to illustrate the damage that this gun did in Uvalde, Texas. Many of the children, the victims, had to be identified through DNA because of how absolutely mutilated their bodies were from the weapon that was used on them to murder them. Those children were ripped apart. They didn't stand a chance. Not a chance. Even more so now that we know the cops were too afraid to go into the building to stop the shooter and waited outside for 40 minutes to an hour for backup to show up. Maybe it's because the cops know how dangerous this weapon is, and how deadly it is. Now, to be fair, let's give you more context, right? So now, according to the police, the rifle photos were not a planned part of the deputy's presentation. Now, again, it was a Google search, so I actually do believe that. Like, oh, let me just type it up on Google. Oops. The Tarrant County Sheriff's Office sent a press release Thursday in which officials apologized for the incident. The release said a student had asked the deputy what types of firearms his vest protected him from. And in an effort to answer the question, the deputy did a Google search, and several AR-15 rifles were displayed on the overhead screen. And I showed you that picture already. School district employees said the rifle type was discussed with the young students. Now, we're talking about elementary school kids. The same kinds of students that Republicans believe need to be protected from books and from knowing that LGBTQIA plus people exist. Need to be defended from that. But guns, police officers, obviously they're going to bring in people who have no problem discussing guns. It just so happened to be the wrong timing. This would have been a news story had there not been a mass shooting at a school just in Texas. In a statement to parents, Daggett Elementary Principal Kendall Miller wrote that he was informed that, quote, one of the presentations by a local public safety agency included information that was not age appropriate. In light of recent events, the officer's presentation was insensitive, not suitable, and not condoned by Daggett Elementary and the Fort Worth ISD. Miller said the school is taking the incident seriously and working with staff to prevent it from occurring again. The school did not provide further details. Now look, here are the facts. Your child is more likely to die in a mass shooting than a police officer is being killed on duty. We have the numbers for that. That's a fact. It's safer to be a cop than a kid in school. I mean, who gets more protection from society? The police officer, obviously. Your kid is way more likely to die in a mass shooting than they are to be molested in a bathroom by a transgender person. But what is Texas focused on? Trans people. Because of course they are. Trans people and preventing people with uteruses to get an abortion. Because they're so pro-life, they're going to protect the unborn fetuses, but when they're born and they happen to be in school, well, mass shootings, it's the price of freedom, everyone.